Good morning. At first read of this gospel lesson, there's no easy, comforting takeaway from this parable. As we have been reading along in the lectionary, Jesus is telling stories, giving images, and asking questions to the people so that they might know and understand who he is, what the kingdom is, and how to live in that kingdom. So today we come to this king and a wedding feast that he is throwing for his son. We want at times to shout, wait a second, this is not at all how the king should behave. But the parable keeps going right to the end with twists and turns, leaving us to make out what our response might be if we were invited into this kingdom. We start first with the setting of the scene. The king has invited the guests. The table is set. Musicians are ready, but no one comes. And I imagine that in this story, this was the event. People knew well in advance that it was happening. And then people were sent out to remind them, it's ready now. And not one person comes. Empty seats sitting around a table. No one dancing. No one eating. No one celebrating the king's son. Messengers are sent out again to tell them it's ready. The best of the food is being served. You don't know what you're missing. And not only are they ignored, they're made light of, laughed at, joked about. It's back to work for the invited guests, home to the kids, and even worse, some mistreat the messengers. And when the king hears, he's over the top angry. He turns violent against these people. But even while this is happening, the party is still waiting. And so others are invited. They go out and they invite anyone in the streets, the good, the bad, the poor, the ordinary. They grab their dancing shoes and their party clothes and they come to the feast. And so the party finally happens. The celebrating, the joy, the happiness. Well, at least for a little bit, everyone's happy. Then someone is spotted who showed up wearing the wrong frock. This person came, but not dressed for a celebration. And when this person has no explanation for why he couldn't be bothered to put on a wedding robe, he's tossed out into the outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So where does this allegory go for us, disciples of Jesus? I think that there's so many places that an individual might enter into this story. Perhaps we have experienced times when the call to celebrate the good news has been taken too lightly. Maybe we've seen it in the world around us. Maybe we ourselves have taken it too lightly. Maybe we've seen times when the call to the good news has been ignored so that one could simply return to the daily routine of life. Or perhaps we've been those who have ignored or even mocked the messengers of joy who come around us. Or perhaps we've been the uninvited. Perhaps this story serves to remind us that when the invitation comes, it might come at unexpected times. It might come even when it seems too late. And it reminds us that the joy is still great. The celebration of our presence is still just as real. Or maybe we are that one guest. We are the ones who show up, but aren't quite ready to join in. I think that sometimes the person who showed up with the wedding robe is much like the child who is so willing to respond yes to any chore they're asked to accomplish. Take out the trash, please. Yes, ma'am. Feed the dog. Yes, ma'am. But when it comes to actually doing the chore, well, the trash is still in the can and the dog is a little bit hungry. Sometimes we are quick to say yes, but unable or unwilling to commit our whole selves to the invitation. Regardless of our response to this invitation, regardless of the timing of the invitation, or our desire to hold back a little from time to time and not quite commit to celebrating just yet, we are all called. We are all called to participate fully in the kingdom. We are all called to find joy and reasons to celebrate. We are all called to come in and celebrate the Son, to clothe ourselves in joy, and to be held accountable for putting our whole selves into our relationship with God. And when we do, we may find that the depth and the mystery of this story is more than just confusing kingly behavior and lessons on what not to wear. Instead, it is an ever-extended, inclusive invitation, reaching out across boundaries and dressing our whole lives in grace. May we see that invitation and be willing to accept. Amen.